From a probabilistic perspective, the emergence of life is almost impossible. So how did the very first life come into existence? It's like throwing hundreds of complex components into water and, without any intervention, expecting them to assemble themselves into a functioning smartphone purely by natural forces. Clearly impossible, yet life appeared anyway. The existence of life itself can almost be called a miracle, and among all life forms, the emergence of humans is a miracle within a miracle. Scientists have long realized that life is not a single event, but a series of highly organized chemical processes. A cell may seem simple, but even the most basic single-celled organism operates like a miniature city. Thousands of proteins work together in coordination, maintaining energy supply, ensuring accurate information replication, and constantly repairing errors. So the question arises, how could such a complex system assemble itself without any designer? Some argue that evolution explains it, but evolution requires life to already exist. In other words, Darwin's theory of evolution cannot explain how life first began. So the question is pushed further back in time. When Earth was still a fiery ball, how was that very first step taken? One of the most widely accepted scientific hypotheses today is chemical evolution, the primordial soup theory. Imagine billions of years ago, Earth's oceans were filled with simple inorganic molecules, such as ammonia, methane, water vapor, and hydrogen. High-energy events like lightning, volcanic eruptions, and ultraviolet radiation provided the energy needed for these molecules to react, gradually forming more complex organic compounds, like amino acids and nucleotides. These small molecules are like letters. They must form words, sentences, and eventually a book. That book is what we now recognize as DNA, RNA, and proteins. The most famous experimental support for this idea came from the Miller-Urey experiments in 1953. Scientists simulated early Earth's atmosphere in a lab and introduced electric sparks. Within days, several amino acids were formed. At that moment, many believed the mystery of life had been solved. But scientists soon realized they had only formed a few letters. They were still far from creating a thinking book. By the 1980s, a new idea emerged. Perhaps RNA was the true beginning of life. We know DNA stores genetic information, while RNA acts as a messenger and translator. But astonishingly, scientists discovered that some RNA molecules can not only carry information, but also catalyze chemical reactions, essentially acting like enzymes. This changes everything. If a molecule can both store information and perform functions, could it replicate itself without external help? This is the basis of the RNA world hypothesis. Imagine a small patch of mud on early Earth, where a primitive RNA molecule begins trying to copy itself. At first, it makes many errors, but among those errors, some variants become more stable and efficient. The cycle of replication accelerates, and natural selection quietly begins. One might even say the faint shadow of self-awareness first emerged in this process. But it's not that simple. Even if RNA could self-replicate, it would require very specific conditions, stable environments, sufficient concentration of molecules, and suitable temperatures. On the chaotic early Earth, meeting all these conditions simultaneously would have been extremely unlikely. So scientists began looking beyond Earth. One theory suggests that life didn't originate here at all, but came from space. This is not science fiction, but a scientific hypothesis called panspermia. It proposes that the building blocks of life, such as amino acids, sugars, or even microbial spores, may have been delivered to Earth via meteorites or comets. And there is evidence. In 1979, scientists discovered multiple amino acids in a meteorite, some of which had never been found on Earth. In 2014, the European Space Agency's Rosetta probe detected organic molecules on a comet's surface. Perhaps Earth is not the mother of life, but merely its cradle. But this pushes the question even further. If life came from space, then where in the universe did it truly begin? Science can often explain how things happen, but not always why. When we study protein folding, cell membrane selectivity, and genetic replication, we are often struck by a profound sense of order. Even Einstein once admitted in his later years that what made the universe feel sacred to him was not its mystery, but its order. He famously said, "God does not play dice." Some philosophers have even proposed the simulation hypothesis. If we are living in a highly advanced simulated system, then the complexity of life may simply be the result of programmed parameters. Perhaps we are not the only life in the universe, but part of some experiment placed on a blue planet for observation. It may sound absurd, but the boundaries of science are often pushed forward by ideas that once seemed absurd. We ask about the origin of life, not just to understand how the first cell appeared, but to understand the meaning of our own existence. If life is purely accidental, then perhaps our existence carries no deeper meaning, just a random chemical coincidence in the universe. But if life is inevitable, if it naturally arises when the universe evolves to a certain stage, then we are not merely passive survivors. We are part of the universe, becoming aware of itself. Over billions of years, from nothing to something, from the vibration of a single molecule to a human being gazing at the stars and asking, "Who am I?" It is as if the universe has grown eyes and begun to look at itself. We may have some clues about the origin of life, but the full picture remains far out of reach. Science does not lack intelligence. It lacks time, evidence, and perhaps that one element that may never be proven: a miracle. Have you ever wondered, if this universe was designed, then who are we? Is our world a natural product, or the creation of some mysterious force? Does a creator truly exist? Perhaps, in a higher dimension beyond our perception, there is a consciousness silently observing this vast sea of stars. 13.8 billion years ago, the universe began with the Big Bang. Logically, an explosion should lead to chaos, but reality is the opposite. From the initial high-temperature plasma to today's orderly galaxies, every step seems to follow a precise script. From stable subatomic structures to the delicate balance of the four fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong force, and the weak force, and even the exact rate of cosmic expansion, it all feels finely tuned, as if running within a perfectly calibrated simulation. Consider this: if the early expansion rate of the universe had been slower by just 1 part in 8 billion, gravity would have dominated, causing the universe to collapse back into a dense singularity. If it had been slightly faster, matter would have been too dispersed to form stars and galaxies, making life impossible. Even more astonishing is carbon, the element that forms the basis of our bodies. It can only be created under extremely narrow conditions inside stars, through the triple alpha process. The temperature and pressure must be precisely right. Any slight deviation, and carbon would never form. And yet, it did. According to the second law of thermodynamics, the overall disorder, entropy, of the universe is always increasing. Systems tend toward chaos and thermal equilibrium. But life appears as a reversal of this trend, a local emergence of order. And intelligent life goes even further, not only creating complex systems of order and information, but also reflecting upon itself and trying to understand the universe. It is as if a deeper law governs everything. Einstein believed the order of the universe was not accidental, but a manifestation of necessity and rationality. Physicist Yang Zhenning saw hints of a deeper force in the symmetry and beauty of physical laws. Stephen Hawking, through his study of black holes and cosmology, repeatedly encountered the profound mystery of the universe's origin. Elon Musk has even stated plainly, the probability that we live in a simulation may be higher than that of living in a real universe. In other words, we might just be a program created by a higher civilization. If that's true, then who is the programmer? Who fine-tuned these physical constants with such precision? Perhaps it has no name, no human emotions. It is not a god in the traditional sense, but something deeper, the very possibility of existence itself. That fundamental choice, why there is something rather than nothing. The further science progresses, the more it feels like we are trying to uncover the veil of a silent observer.